So I wanted to use the flat hunting analogy to describe that research that we'll be conducting this semester isn't really a linear, sequential set of action steps, but really a series of interconnected inquiries that all overlap one another, where one piece of information leads to the next, and different types of research tools are applied so that we can better understand certain facets of what you're discovering. When looking for the flat, you could say that some of my research was quite informal. I might be looking on the web, I might be looking at newspapers and finding listings and categories of available apartments. Then I might have adopted a more formal approach by heading out to the library and starting to conduct information about certain civic groups that might have information about local housing. I might also want to find out whether there are organisations in the neighbourhood that could help me find an apartment. But as we start to use these different types of searching techniques, we very quickly find that they overlap with one another. For instance, my informal web search and my search for the local newspaper might bring me to exactly the same listings, but in different types of format. And as we're always aware with the internet, as soon as we start looking for one thing, we tend to deviate and start to look for others. So for instance, a search in the local newspaper about apartments in a particular neighbourhood might suddenly identify some statistics or stories about crimes that may be taking place in that neighbourhood as well. A search online might lead us to a local organisation that maintains its own blog, and through the blog we may start to find anecdotal information about characteristics in the neighbourhood that we didn't expect to find. When conducting interviews or discussions with friends about their own neighbourhoods, we may start to find that they can connect us to a greater network of people that also live in the neighbourhood as well. And again, don't forget that by being a member of a much larger network such as the university, you also find networks of people that you don't even know that will be willing to help you with the information that you're looking for. So occasionally formal research starts to bring us into contact with informal research, and vice versa. So what's important to take away from this is that in fact not one type of research is more important than the other, and having the skill to diversify and look for the right information and gather the data in the quickest possible way often requires great dexterity and a lot of imagination and creativity as well. So I like to think of research not as a linear process, but like a spider's web, where many interconnecting stories come together and we led in areas that we hadn't expected to go in the first place. And that's why as we get into the semester's work, I would encourage you not to merely write in a linear fashion, but to start to explore your drawing skills to develop diagrams. And because research inquiry is a preparatory course for your thesis research in the fall, what I want to encourage you to do is test out and explore different types of drawing, writing, thinking tools that will help you when you get into the much more rigorous written component that thesis research requires you to produce. Your work in the fall semester will have a greater depth and a greater rigor in terms of finding a story, finding a research path that you're particularly interested in pursuing. And we want to use these tools and these modes of inquiry now to start to find out what would your thesis question be? What are you particularly interested in learning about and exploring and research during the summer months? At this early stage you may have absolutely no idea what that research path should be, but there might have been issues or interests that had motivated you to come to NISAD in the first place, and they're the things that we need to sort of uncover early on in the thesis research process. Much of the work in the fall is about articulating these ideas, explaining how you come to the idea and where is the research that needs to be conducted in order to understand that in greater depth. But we should waste no time in getting to that topic and starting to explore things that may be of interest to you. So in the first week I would like you to begin exploring those ideas in written form, with the beginning of a 500-word examination of where your interest may lie, but most importantly also to start to develop your own diagrams, your own webs and networks that are connecting seemingly disconnected stories or component parts together. It's absolutely fine if the things in your web or your network don't seem to have any relationship to one another. You want to be putting down words, thoughts, ideas that will eventually gel together to become the beginnings of a thesis question. It's my hope that the diagrams that you start to create will show you previously unseen connections between topics. And then we can start to take those issues, those words, and those thoughts, and start to think about the different types of research paths that we can conduct in order to learn more. So throughout the research semester, we're going to be looking at a number of different readings that I would like to propose that you purchase as soon as possible. The first of these is Research Inspired Design. It's a step-by-step guide for interior designers, and a relatively successful book in exploring the different research sequences that we do at NISAD. This is a book that has a variety of strategies, brainstorming exercises, small assignments that I think will support your own understanding of each of its chapters. The second book I'd encourage you all to buy is a book that we have previously used in universal design courses. This is a book called Innovating with People, and it's published by the Norwegian Design Council. I like it because I think it's a groundbreaking exploration not only of the sequence of research steps that we'll be looking at in more detail, but it shows a personalized, more creative way in applying research, particularly when working with human beings, end users. There's a number of recommended readings too, which I think you'll find very useful, and these are included in the syllabus, and we'll be going back to these and looking more carefully at them in the coming weeks. The first of these, Architectural Programming by Donald Work, is a book that we'll be using in the fall as part of thesis research, and I would encourage anybody to buy that now so that it gives you a very helpful visual reference to the types of design diagramming that you'll be exploring when you get into that class as well. Also of value to us this week is a number of websites devoted to design research. These are very helpful for us because a lot of design research is emerging, it's current, so we want to find a database that will provide us with the latest and most extensive summary of what design research is currently being undertaken. To do that, I'd like to introduce you to Informed Design, which is a website created by the University of Minnesota and primarily serving initially as a catch-all for a variety of different areas of design inquiry. Informed Design is neatly divided up into 3 different component parts: space, issues, and occupants. These contain actually many different sort of research abstracts or summaries of research which is being conducted in the past or currently created. Let me just take you quickly through these. If we look at the space category, which is the yellow square on the right hand side, you can see that there are a number of different categories within this block. What's interesting is for under each of the blue titles we can see that there are numerous research documents. For instance, look at outdoor spaces over on the right hand side, and let's double click on that and see what happens when we open it up. Under outdoor spaces you can see again a number of different subcategories again, and next to them brackets with numbers in them. These numbers relate to specific research which is being conducted at the moment and also relates to that topic. Going into pedestrian environment, for instance, we now start to kind of mine deeper into specific information about what that research entails. So let's take a look at the first one, including tourists, perceptions in walkability, scale and development. If you double click on that title and go deeper into this one, you can see that this is actually going to be produced by a number of different authors, and the way that the information is laid out gives you the title, who the authors are, and when that information was written, plus a number of search related keywords that will steer you towards more specific information in that area. Of most important for us at the moment is the whole idea of the design issue. What are these people seeking to inquire about? What are they looking for? So we're looking for our own issues at the moment, and this is a nice way to understand how other people articulate their own search. What's also very telling and very interesting about each of the summaries which are placed on Informed Design is right at the bottom when we start to learn about the publishers of research. Research publishing is a presumably very lucrative area these days because each of the documents that you can find on Informed Design can only be seen in a superficial way. You have to buy the content if you want to read deeper into this information. So the publication companies very often give you a little bit of an insight into who is producing the publications and who are their potential markets. So I would like you to go into Informed Design this week and take a little search of the space, occupants and issues categories that we have there on the right hand side of the screen. I'd like you to choose 3 from each and try and categorize or summarize some of the key information which has been particularly interesting to you at this stage. Now, this can be a relatively quick sort of impromptu search for the data itself. We're not looking immediately to try and find your thesis issues or your thesis interests straight away from these documents, but I think what you'll start to see is the same interconnected nature of the topics that you're interested in. As you look through each of your topics, pay close attention to who those publishers are, and also pay close attention to the amount of research which is being conducted in similar fields, particularly by looking back at those bracketed numbers associated with the subcategories within the blocks. They're very telling, because again it shows why would so many people be interested in that particular area, and although the research itself won't necessarily explain that to you, you can again begin to draw your own assumptions or hypotheses about why you think there is such a demand for knowledge in that field. As you begin to write your 500-word study of your own interests this week, these topics may start to play a role. You can weave some of the discoveries in and start to speculate again about where there may be demand or relevance for particular areas of research inquiry. Finally, I'd also like to draw your attention to the left-hand side of the homepage screen for Informed Design as well. You can see a little discrete turquoise button at the top with Main Menu. If you click on the Main Menu button, you'll see some other pull-down menus which are also going to be important for you to investigate this week, particularly one in the center of that pull-down list which is called Implications. Implications produces an archive of past issues. This is a publication that comes out quite frequently, which is actually free, available to you as a PDF file format, and will then give you a sense of what the more in-depth research actually looks like by producing a series of published PDF articles on a frequent basis. You should also sign up on Informed Design as well, and then you'll be receiving very frequent newsletters which also point you in the direction of research that later on down the road may actually become very important to you as well.